Have you ever thought about how important social identity and inclusion are? For example, Aung San Suu Kyi explains how in Myanmar there was an attempt to create more inclusion between people of different races, religions, genders, and cultures, especially after the country started moving towards democracy. However, when the military regained control in 2021, much of that progress stopped, and the divisions between groups remain. This shows that identity and inclusion are not only change personal, but shapes how people live together.
We did a lot of research to see different points of view on this topic. Firstly, we found an article that showed us some psychologists' point of view. The article, Social Identity Theory, written by Simply Psychology, explains how people define themselves through their group memberships, such as nationality, social class, or region. Individuals categorize themselves and others into groups, identify with those that strengthen their self-image, and often judge their own group as better. Social categorization means organizing people by race, gender, religion, or nationality. This helps us understand the social world, but can also lead to stereotypes.
Knowing what groups we belong to guides our behavior since we tend to follow their norms. For example, if you see yourself as a student, you act according to what you believe a student should do, through social identification. People adopt the values and rules of their group, and their self-esteem becomes linked to belonging. Finally, in social comparisons, groups are contrasted with others, which can generate competition and conflict not only over resources like jobs, but also because groups' identities clash and people perceive themselves as different.
A lot of times society assumes that people who are alone are bad or antisocial, but that's not the truth. Many excluded people are good, but they are judged for their appearance or their difference. Rachel Summer, Cornell University, highlights that adolescence is a fragile stage of identity formation. Teenagers' perception of themselves changes constantly, and exclusion at this stage can deeply affect their self-image and how they act in society. That's why exclusion is not just a personal problem, it's a social one.
Moreover, people who are excluded often don't have a strong sense of identity and can develop a low self-esteem. Tanya Stephenson explains that during teenage years, young people need to build a powerful self-identity, but social pressure and discrimination make that process harder. This means that exclusion can prevent people from discovering who they are. We must understand that excluded people are not different or less.
Sadly, exclusion can go beyond low self-esteem and become life-threatening. Some people feel so rejected and invisible that they decide to end their lives. Patchen, in 2025, reports that 35.5% of students experience bullying, and this can leave psychological scars that remain even in adulthood. Bullying attacks people's identity, makes them feel worthless, and increases the risk of depression or suicide. Every year, more than 720,000 people die by suicide worldwide, and many of these cases are linked to loneliness, exclusion, and lack of belonging.
Inclusion not only benefits individuals, but also society as a whole. When people feel accepted and valued, they become more confident and are able to share their abilities with others. This makes communities stronger and more united. Anne Branford, Claremont University, explaining her identity harmony model that when people's work identity and personal identity are both respected, they feel balanced and included, and even create healthier relationships. This shows that inclusion is not just a value, it's a right. Schools should give an equal opportunities to every student, no matter their gender, culture, or religion, and communities should create spaces where everyone feels included.
We also need to understand that we never know what's happening in the life of the people around us. Many people who are shy or quiet actually want to talk, but they won't take the first step. The Children's Society explains that identity building today is even harder because of society media pressure and constant changes. That's why empathy is so important. Sometimes just talking to someone who looks excluded can completely change their day.
And that's the main reason we're doing this podcast, to raise awareness and show how much identity and inclusion matter. Neil MacArthur in 2024 argues that sexual identity is not fully recognized by law, which leaves any LGBTQ people unprotected. This shows that exclusion doesn't just happen in school or communities. It also exists at legal and political level. Everyone deserves to feel safe, respected, and you can build your happiness without hurting yourself just to fit in. Inclusion is not an option, it's essential for life.